who stayed this whole time are lucky because they saved the best for last, I suppose you since but now I shouldn't be so braggadocious about that.
Can you speak up a little bit?
Can you hear me all right? You didn't want to hear it. But this stuff is fun. I've got some really fun material for you on the design side because
Totally dirty.
But right sizing fundamentally comes down to, okay, we're going to build something, and it'll exist when it's finished, and what does it look like? So that's what some of this stuff is about. And so the very first thing that I focused on in here was how do you right size a region? Because sometimes we think about right sizing and think, well, okay, it's about a project, a corridor. And in my mind, yeah, it is, but that's really small. The first thing to think about is, are we getting the overall regional footprint and scale of things well done for a sustainable going forward? And found a recommendation in an ITE planning manual from 1992 that said if you had a collector street every half mile, an arterial every 1 mile, and a larger expressway every 5 miles, that would be a really resilient system, and you'd have a hard time going wrong. You almost wouldn't have any congestion in an environment like that. So I said, wow, that's interesting. Let's see what happens when we kind of make a little picture of that and then apply it to a region. So I drew this picture of Salt Lake County because that's where I'm from. I live in that area. And said, all right, on the left we take that, what if we'd have looked like this image, and on the right is this is what we actually look like, and or what we're planning to exist like in areas that haven't been built yet. And some of the messages that come through in that are that right here in this middle section is where there's a lot of missing elements. It's missing regional, the larger red roads, it's missing smaller collector streets. And what ends up happening is that for any road that runs east-west through here, it gets so bombarded with everything. It's trying to carry local collector traffic as well as regional statewide trips that for people that are on long trips. And it's just too much and it can't handle it. So that's, I think, an important part of the right sizing. And the MPO just to the south of Salt Lake County saw that earlier picture and they said, we really like that. That's really useful. Can we do one of those here in our county? So we did the same thing there. This is Utah County, Big Utah Lake that's there in the center. And I applied that thinking here and said, all right, if that's what your future ought to look like, they're only about half developed right now. This is actually twice as large as what they currently are. Then these are the spots where there are corridors under threat right now. So black and red means if you're ever going to have this facility ever exist, then you got to do what it takes today to prevent development from going into those spots, because you'll not be able to build this in another 3 or 4 years because the development is happening so rapidly. So that's, I think, an interesting aspect of design. We're doing the same thing in a county called Spalding, just south of Atlanta. The Atlanta expansion has almost reached them. And it's a rather large county, and so we did an overlay and said, well, it might take 50 years, it might take 100 years, but someday, if the county ever fully urbanizes, it would be pretty resilient to have that many through streets that exist in different places. This is what they actually look like. They're far, far under that right now because it's a rural area, it hasn't developed yet. But even though it's rural, it is developing. So there's cul-de-sacs going up all over the place and things. And if they don't start doing some corridor preservation, they will not have the ability to create these through streets soon. And so that, I think, is an important part of right sizing, is getting out there to the greenfield areas and saying, before you block off everything with cul-de-sacs, try to make sure you've got a few places to put some larger corridors.
Are you saying the hierarchical road system is not good?
Well, at least least it's not enough. I'm not sure that it's, in most of the suburban America, they just haven't done enough corridor preservation. So what roads do exist get overwhelmed. So this is kind of a similar kind of thinking, but looking now, instead of trying to protect green fields, it's how do we actually try to really protect green fields so that they can stay green. And it happens all over the place. You get these booming greenfield areas that are expanding like crazy, and at the same time, in the same region, you've got these struggling gray field areas. So I drew this little circle like that to show how the fringes are consuming land, but there's decaying interiors. And so how do we kind of reverse that? I think that's a right-sizing concept. What does it actually take to make these interior gray field areas attractive for development so that the market wants to come back in? And so, the grass is always greener on the other side of the fence. That's the goal, is you try to make the grass green on the inside so that the development market doesn't feel compelled to go outside. So, and this is happening in my community. I think it's happening all over the place, where people are creating these growth scenarios of where they want growth to go. And in Salt Lake County, they've said, all right, well, we would like to see these activity centers emerge and walkable boulevards emerge, and we'd like to concentrate a fair amount of future growth there in those kind of places. So that's a good statement of goal and an objective for the region, but then it becomes, well, all right, great that you said that, but what's your mechanism to actually accomplish that? How do you do it? And this is a fun framework that has that opportunity to accomplish that. It's called the 7 Ds. I don't know if you've heard of these before, but density. The goal is that if you can do these things and focus on this, you can reduce VMT per capita. So every one of these things will reduce VMT per capita. Density, diversity, design, and that's connectivity and such. Destinations. If you create these activity centers and walkable boulevards that have actually got things that people want to go to, then that's helpful. Distance from transit. Demographics, that's thinking about the changing needs, how you've got younger kids that either never got a driver's license or they don't want to drive that much. You've got older folks that shouldn't be driving that much. And how do we create a right-sized environment for them? Demand management. And then there's even 7 more Ds that are focused more on dealing with congestion and how can you utilize this for right-sizing within the vehicle realm. And this is a fun one. So design is just kind of beginning with the end in mind in the first place. Like, what would it be? Then we've got, I don't like that term. Divert traffic, like if there's a roadway that's just got too much on it, is there places, other corridors that can compete with that? Deduct is a fun concept where you say, rather than try to make places for more cars, can we do things that will, alternative modes that will give people an option so that they don't have to be in a car? Delete VMT or delete trips is an interesting one. It's kind of like deduct, but delete means are we focusing on land use optimization, making it possible so that origins and destinations are closer together, so that even if people go by car, they didn't have to go so far. And that reduces a fair amount of DMT. Dynamic is the use of ITS and electronics, and then there's direct capacity, which is, okay, if you've tried everything else and you still got too much traffic, there are some fun and unique right-sizing design ideas that actually create new vehicular capacity. And then the last one is just deal with it. If you're in a community where you did everything you can do and there's nothing left you can do, then you just accept the things you cannot change, right? This one's a fun one. This is kind of looking at your region through where do your taxes come from that pays for infrastructure? And this is intriguing because it shows how the poorest neighborhoods in this community are the ones that generate the most property taxes per capita because it's small properties. And so you accumulate a lot of small properties, you get a lot of money out of it, actually. And these very large properties like Walmarts and such, they consume a lot of land, but they don't pitch in a lot of property tax revenue relative to the acres and infrastructure that support them. And so a right-sizing concept here is that if this is where your money is coming from, and yet it's so neglected and ugly and could use some investment, then this is an argument to invest in those spaces so that you can attract development back into those spaces again. All right, so here's some actual direct design ideas for corridors, and I'll walk through and show you that. So we did a little bit of work for a road in Salt Lake near downtown, 300 West, and I'll walk you through some of that, and let me just jump right to this one. So this is the way it looks right now. It's worn out. It's got telephone poles in the sidewalk right next to fire hydrants. So if you're a biker, you kind of got to stop and go around the telephone pole. And so yeah, the thing is in difficult shape. And it was an industrial corridor at one point, so nobody cared that much that it didn't have a very good sidewalk or anything. But the industry is largely going away. There's a lot of demand for mixed-use development and housing in the corridor now. And so there's a real desire to reinvent that road, and this is an opportunity for right-sizing concepts. Now, so that's just kind of the way it is right now, and we use that program that we built, streetplan.net, to create these graphics. And then this is a picture of what it could be afterward. It's the same amount of right-of-way. And I'm a traffic engineer in my other part of my job, and I look at that and I go, okay, it looks nice and everything, but there's one of the things I immediately noticed that looks problematic is before I had a place to put left-turning vehicles, and now apparently I don't. So what's going on with that? And that's some of the resistance you get out of the operations side of these decisions. Is wonderful that you're making a nice complete street, but it doesn't work very well, and so no. And that's where the transportation engineers come in and say no. So what we put into the appendices of the guidebook is some design ideas that can actually help bridge that gap so that transportation engineers can say yes. And I'm going to show you some of those strategies now. So this is in that guidebook where one of the things that kind of accidentally happens to a lot of arterial streets is they'll take a state highway that was going somewhere and it crosses with another one, and then those are the two roads that actually go somewhere. Then haphazard development starts occurring all over the place next to it, commercial usually. And these are sort of like commercial access roads and driveways, but they don't connect to anything, and so everybody has to use it. Okay. And
We give you a signal.
well, but this is the fun stuff. John, what do we need to, or what time is it anyway?
It's a little after 3.
A little after 3?
Yeah.
And the whole thing ends?
4:30.
4:30?
Yeah.
So, well, I'm going to walk you through some of this. I'll move faster, but the design stuff is so useful. So, basically, this is saying if you can coordinate with local governments ahead of development, then you can try to get backage roads and connectivity that supports the arterials ahead of time, and then it creates a lot better circulation opportunity. And then this one, because those backage roads exist, it allows you to do a concept called a quadrant intersection, and I'm going to show you one of those right here. So what the quadrant intersection does is it makes it possible to get rid of these left turn pockets at major intersections and use planted medians and pedestrian refuge. And it also makes the intersection work better for vehicles. So it's a really great right-sizing strategy for achieving a complete street that works better for vehicles and better for everybody else too. It's just win-win across the board. And what it does, I don't know if you can see that very easily, but the arrows say, instead of making a left turn at the main intersection, you look for a way to make a left turn prior to that at a secondary intersection. And by doing that, then you've released all of the left turn space that you had here. You can give that back to, for complete street uses, planted medians and pedestrian refuge, and wider sidewalks and all of that. And some other things that are great about it is that it activates property that was kind of dead on the back side. Because the commercial markets can't use land that if it can't be seen, then it can't be used effectively. And so if you can create smaller parcels and get some visibility out here, you get an opportunity to create an entire activity center out of the space that you couldn't before. So that's a way to get more density out of land by utilizing this vehicle. A similar idea here, but using roundabouts. But what the roundabouts do is instead of having a left turn pocket needed right here, you move through the intersection, go around the roundabout and come back out. It's a Michigan left turn is what they're called. But this is utilizing it in different ways. It's just a lot of fun. So, and I don't need to show you that one. But this is a cool one, right-sizing a school zone. So there was a school zone in Utah where a kid got killed, and when you take a look at the road in front of the school, it's a 45-mile-an-hour road. Of course, it's 25 miles an hour when somebody's there holding the sign, but when there's not somebody holding the sign, it's still 45. So what we said was, you can go in and just redesign that crosswalk in front of the school that pretty much forces people to go down to 25 or even 20, only for the short distance that the school exists, if necessary, and have a much safer situation. It's safer all of the time, not just part of the time. And it seems unsafe somehow because you're putting trees out next to the travel lane, but I think there's a fair amount of research now that shows that that actually proves to be safer because people sense that there is an unsafe situation, so they slow down. And
Friction is good.
yeah. All right. You want to see this one? I know you do. So this is a super cool one. So you all heard about road diets, right? So I'm going to show you how to do a new kind of a road diet with using roundabouts. So here's the classic road diet scenario where you got 4-lane road that does not have a center median. And so the red cars are getting blocked behind this blue car that's trying to turn left. This yellow car can't get out onto the road because there's just too many cars coming by. So that is a challenge and an assessment of, so that's the cross-section in this case. This is an actual street in Asheville, North Carolina, where they have a 50-foot right-of-way, but 40 of the 50 feet are asphalt, and then they got a gutter and a 4-foot sidewalk on the sides, and so it's very pavement heavy. And so one right-sizing strategy is to do a road diet. Road diet, everybody knows what a road diet is, so I won't go well on that too much, but it does give you the ability to get a bike lane in, and it gives a place to get that blue car out of the way so that other vehicles can get by. It hasn't done a whole lot yet for this yellow car. There's still too much streaming by in both directions, so he still cannot get out. So here's what you can do with a roundabout-based road diet. And this is an intriguing idea. So with this, it's very similar, but I've now consumed the median. I do not have a place to store cars in the median anymore. But that's okay, because what I've done instead is created a roundabout opportunity where that blue car that was trying to turn left here before goes around the roundabout and comes in right there instead. So it's a right-in, right-out system. Very, very safe. And it's the access control people are going to love this. And And then the yellow car that could not get a gap in traffic before is now, doesn't need to, it's a right in, right out, so it goes right around the roundabout. It's a little bit additional length of trip to get out, but it's faster because they didn't have to get it down in both directions, and it's safer. And with that, this is the comparison of utilization of space. So we had 40 foot of asphalt before, 10 foot for something other than asphalt, which was the sidewalk. Then we had 20 feet now for something else, and in this case, we're now exceeding it. 28 feet of the whole space is for non-asphalt uses. That's a really awesome little strategy. So, okay.